Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations on Data. I'm your host, Havish Madhvapati. I'm delighted to have with me today Maniraj Juneja, who is the founder of Processify and Amitoje, India. Maniraj is a IIT Delhi and an MIT alumnus and has 4 patents pending. At Amitoje, India, they create foldable retail display stands, and they have worked with some of the largest firms in India and in the world, such as Coca-Cola, Pepsi, ITC, Parle, Amul, and so on and so forth. I've been following Maniraj for a while on LinkedIn, and what caught my attention was the really innovative type of material they were creating for trade marketing. And coming from a background of CPG myself, I worked with Reckitt for 3 years when I started my career. I have a close connect and understanding of these point of sale paraphernalia that is used. It would be a pleasure to speak to Maniraj about the way they do things at Amitoje India, the innovation they are creating, and his advice to B school students about being an entrepreneur. Hi, Maniraj. Good afternoon. Hi, and welcome to the podcast.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I had been thinking of inviting you for a while. And, this is one of those things where I know it's super important for my target audience, which is B school students. And I really felt that this is as good a time as any to have somebody like you who has been down and dirty, right? And has been doing these things to try and understand everything about trade marketing, visual merchandising. But to begin with, we would all like to know what your education background is and how you ended up starting Amitoje India.
Right. So, coincidentally, it has nothing to do with marketing or VTL. So I'm a graduate from IIT Delhi. I did my engineering in 2010. I went to MIT, did my MS, came back in, 2008 was IIT, 2010 is MIT. And thereon, my friend and I, we started an e-commerce company called madeinhealth.com. This was early 2010s. And so that ran pretty well for a year, maybe a year and a half, and that got acquired. So HealthCart acquired a company at that point. We were their biggest competitors. After that, I was, looking for things to do, what to start next. And I realized, so Amitoje India is actually my family business. So my dad had, he's been doing this for the past 30, 35 years now. So somewhere around 2015-ish is where I, decided to join this business properly, 14, 15. And what really happened was that at that time we were doing wide format printing, and we were doing flex and vinyls and all, right? And those things were becoming a commodity. And by the time I entered the business, I was like, there's no USP left. And what are we really doing for the customer? It's, nothing great. It's just a very basic service provider. And so, and at the same time, I discovered that there was this, I'll tell you a story. So there was this display rack, which I had seen somebody had brought into our office saying, can you make this, something like this? And for a brand. And I was really shocked to see it. I was like, this is how these things are made. Like, it was ugly is one thing, but it was just very inefficiently made. It wouldn't fold. So, I could just imagine what would be the issues of taking it there. And I was like, it was actually very irritating for me to see that this is what's really going on. And in my research, I saw that for the past 20, 25, 30 years, nothing has changed. Okay, people have just been doing this in the same way, same technology. And I realized this is, a very, very huge gap. So this was 2015, we had made 0 displays. We were working with very different clientele. And I started assembling a team and started creating these kind of units, okay? So started with standees and your FSUs and countertop units. So all your racks and gondolas that you see. So, then I had a vision for how like my thing was that people are habituated to a certain kind of look and feel of, how they should be. So I don't have to move away a lot, but then I need to give it the utility. So we started creating these things which were foldable, which were super easy to implement. Because the Indian mentality is, right, if it's too hard, people will just leave it. And you've been at Reckitt, so that happens, right? If something is just too difficult, it might just not get implemented. So companies are there spending all of this money, and it just goes to waste, because at the end point the person is unable to do it, or it's difficult to, or somebody else has to come and do it. So these were all of the issues that we've been trying to solve for the past 6 years. And just to give you an idea, today, I'm still leading Amitoje India, and we're working with, in the past 2 years, we worked with 400 different brands, right? And we've grown around 500, 600% from that time. So that's been my journey. And would love to understand your thoughts. And
Yeah, I think the success of the business is, I think, the numbers and the number of clients that you have. But tell me, what is the protectability here? I mean, I always look at your posts and I wonder that, it's the innovation and coming up with that idea and also being able to execute it. I think that is the challenging part. But how are you making sure that it is protectable and you don't really find everybody else being able to sort of just create a copycat version?
So there are copycats, and it's good to have copycats. Means you're doing something right. But we have 4 patents. One is granted, 3 are pending anytime now. So that's one, protection there. But really, that's in my mind, that's just the legal thing. The real protection is the mindset that hey, I'm so at Amitoje India, our core purpose is to make lives easy. And any person you talk to, they'll know this very, very deeply. So once we are making life easy, it's ultimately the core of business or the core of sales is to find out what your clients really, really need, or to anticipate what they will need through your knowledge. It's not always that the clients know what they want. Most of the times they do. But then once we are, so today we are doing this foldable thing, tomorrow we might be doing something else. So for example, I'll just give you an example, right? A lot of our clients used to say, we don't know how much space is going to be available, so we don't want this unit, we want that unit. So we started making adjustable units, right? So that's away from the foldability. It's just just a new thing. So we're doing so much R&D, we're launching so many new products. That itself is the protection,
right? It's interesting you mentioned the adjustability, because this is very personal to me. I've worked with Reckitt and I've done a rural stint, I've done the modern trade stint. See, it is not just about planning, right? These are, especially when you talk about BTL, it's about execution. It's all about execution. And that's where the challenge comes in. Sitting in your office, you can plan all you want, but when you're actually out there in the store, in the market, at the mall, you realize that there are so many of these external factors that you have to account for, and you really can't plan all of those things. So absolutely. That's where somebody like you has to work closely with the client as well. It's not just about giving you a schematic and saying this is the dimension and this is the quality. It's a little more than that, right?
Never works like that. Never works like that.
Yeah. Okay. What I want to talk about is how important do you think this will be going forward? I mean, at Reckitt, we were always told, "Jo dikhta hai, wohi bikta hai," and to be very honest with you, as salespeople, we were a little miffed, because the problem is that the way clients were handling it, I did my stint with Reckitt in 2009, 2011, is that suddenly they will say, we have invested in a gondola or an FSU, you have to go and put it in a store. Now, the problem is that nobody is invested in it. The distributor, the client, which might be the retailer, either a big bazaar or a modern trade outlet or a slightly smallish outlet, and the salesperson. The problem is because typically when you go to a store, they're going to argue and say, this is precious space, right? I mean, you want prime location where all the eyes are there and there are competing brands for it. So that investment coming in from all these multiple players and stakeholders, I think that's a very important part. So I would just like to understand, have you faced these challenges as well? I mean, one is the product quality and the innovation, which I'm sure is great. but also in terms of educating people on the advantage and, sort of fighting for that space? Has that been something that you have encountered?
So, are you talking about the physical space when you say?
Yes.
Yeah. So, for clients, getting units or elements from us is much easier than the whole thing of placing it over there, right? And we realize that difficulty. It's just the way that retail is evolving. It's evolving so fast in India that there's no standard process defined. So I think these are problems which will get sorted soon, because there's a huge potential. You said jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. That is so damn true, right? And I'll give you an example of that, and I'll circle back to happen here. So my example is Schweppes, right? Schweppes is a fantastic brand. Everybody knows about Schweppes. We have a video testimonial from the people at Coke, right? And we did a few Schweppes unit at that time. This was a few years back. And I have this gentleman on video saying that, hey, we put the Schweppes unit, and wherever we put this unit, our sales almost went at least 2x or 3x. Okay, so I mean, that's something to think about. Schweppes is not a brand that needs to establish itself. And anybody who needs, tonic knows this is a good brand that I can go in for. Still, having something that is just, calling you out increases or boosts the sale. So, that really impacted me, that example. I'm like, okay, now I understand that this is a really big impact that this has the potential to create. And sadly, what happens is a lot of people are not aware of this. Okay, this is a fantastic tool. And I don't blame them, because the only problem is that it's very hard to measure, right? If I've put in some investment in this place, it's not a very easy measure to see, what ROI that has given me, as compared to, let's say, if I put $1,000 on Google, I know, if I'm getting $5,000 back on my e-commerce store, it's very easy to measure. So people are like, okay, this is certain. So people will go in for more certainty, and vanity. That is what comes through advertisements and newspaper front pages. So that's of course there's ROI there also, but that's also difficult to measure. But there's a vanity point over there. There's a brand identity point over there. So this is somewhere in the middle where measurement is slightly difficult. So most brands just take a guess and they say, okay, we're going to put this kind of a budget in this. Or a lot of times what happens is, we've seen brands, okay, we've seen competition doing something like this. What can we do to better it? So, they'll follow the others. So this is also a thing that we've seen a lot. Right. And but eventually people will understand that this is a very, very precious tool, because once you have visibility on the retail store, ultimately that's what you're looking for. Because as a consumer, if I go in, see, my basic funda of life is everybody is lazy, including me. Okay, I'm the laziest person you'll find. So when I walk into the store, I want something to just make my job easy. So if I'm going to select, let's say, a toothpaste, and I see something is okay, very, very in my face, so I will probably just at least pick and read that up, right? That's the basic thing that I would do. And once that happens, my thing is sorted. Any ad that you will see on TV, any ad that you will see on a newspaper is away from the point of sale. That's not where the decision is being made. The decision is to purchase is being made, on the store. So if something can influence me there, that is going to be a much better, source for me to understand, or source for the brand to be visible. That's probably the best place to be visible. And a lot of brands do understand this very, very well, and a lot of brands don't. But eventually, retailers will understand that this has to happen this way, and they'll sort out processes, and brands will understand. But I still think the education is very, very low. Then it's an understated, underplayed kind of game, and isn't that a good thing for brands that are upcoming, right? Because they have the first mover advantage, or the advantage of moving in quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned ATL and BTL. So in your conversations with clients, do you really feel that it's getting the importance? I think you partly answered that question, but at least in terms of a budget spend, I know
Definitely.
for a fact that when we look at ATL media spend, sometimes these things are planned 2-3 years in advance, right?
Hmm.
And BTL was quite neglected because, it's easy to say that the measurement is not there, but it's a vicious circle, right? I mean, it's only when you spend money, you will also create better metrics around it and figure out a way to do it, right?
Actually, true. You're right. Yeah. If I'm spending a lot of money, then I want to see the ROI. If I'm spending a little bit money, then I'm not too bothered about it. So that happens a lot with all the large corporates.
But have you seen that shift in the last couple of years that you have been doing this, where you've seen that BTL is getting the importance that it should?
Little bit. I wouldn't say. Actually, hard to answer that question because of COVID, because everything just got shook around. And so I can't tell very clearly whether, because at that point everybody was away from video. At that point it was all digital, right? So I was there, but I think slowly it's very gradual. I wouldn't say that there's a very strong shift. I wouldn't say that. But what has changed is, I'll tell you why there is a shift, is because there's so many brands which have come up in the past 3 years. So many D2C first brands that have now started coming offline. And because they want to capture that space, so that's, even the biggies or the traditional players now focus more on that. Although all the big players already have established processes. So see, they MNCs understand the value. They've been doing it in so many markets, so they already established processes. Budgets are a little here or there.
I would love to hear from you some 2-3 instances of some interesting experiences you have had, or a challenging project that you have worked on and done something really out of the ordinary.
Let me just think. Any specific instances don't come to mind, just right now. But I think the biggest challenge that we've taken up upon us is that there's a very huge range of products, right? That come across. Some brand might be selling, as I said, toothpaste. Some brand might be selling deodorants, and someone is selling maybe tennis rackets, and someone is selling sweeps, okay, and mops. So I think it's a pretty challenging thing to understand the form of the product and then create something around that. So there's in this industry, there happens to be a lot of customization in what we do, because a different brand will come in, they will have a different need, different requirement, and supplier or a provider will create things their way. So but in order to make things easier for the client, we've done a lot of standardization. Okay, we have defined various kinds of products. Okay, this class of products can be used by these kind of they can use these kind of units, and this class can use this. So we've put in a lot of effort to standardize these things, and that makes the job of designing and choosing things very easy for a brand. So probably that's the biggest challenge I've seen in this industry. And being from the selling side, I can tell you is we've had to work really, really hard to get that shift, because it's like a whole culture shift. People are used to buying in a different way, but we were trying to present something in a different way so that it's easier for both of us. So probably that's the biggest thing that I have seen changed, apart from anything else that you might see on LinkedIn, all the foldable designs, that's there. But this is what we do internally, so it's a bigger challenge for me.
Right. So even though you don't come from a B school, I mean, your educational qualification is very different. If you had to advise not just a B school student, but engineering students or B school students, what they should know and probably what they are not aware about when it comes to trade marketing, if I put it all under an umbrella,
Yeah.
What would those things be? Something that took you by surprise, where you said, "Oh my God, I never realized that this is how the market sentiment is," or what you said earlier. I never realized that this is how bad the product offerings are that are there in the market. So what would those integral things be, which you feel everybody should at least have a little bit of idea about?
So, I don't want to talk about any technical terms or anything, but my suggestion would be to have a very experimental mindset. Um, I see those companies succeeding where the mindset is to try something new and look at it very scientifically and see if how it's working. See, there's always a place for gut instinct, but then unless you don't see the numbers and work through them and then invest accordingly, you will never get the scale, or you will become inefficient even if you do get the scale. So my tip to all B school students would be that, okay, there's a certain way things are taught to you, right? But if we all did the way things are being taught, then nothing would change. So my tip would be to be experimental, explore different things, see how they are doing, see the numbers, and then then that's when the gut and the brain can come in and say, okay, this is right and this is wrong.
My final question is about entrepreneurship. I'm a first generation entrepreneur. I think I know of no one in my extended family who even had a close stint with entrepreneurship. You, of course, do come from that background, but while a lot of students look at me hoping that I'm going to encourage them to become an entrepreneur, it's just the other way around. Having lived through this, I tell them, do it only if you know you really want to do it. And something I'm known for saying all the time is that if you need a push and if you need motivation to become an entrepreneur, it's not your cup of tea. You cannot seek motivation. Mentoring is one thing, but then you really need to have the drive that you're going to do it one way or other.
Yeah.
So the question that I have is that a lot of students, who are on the fence, especially the first generation entrepreneurs, it's very flashy when you read articles and look at everything in the news. And on the other hand, it's very easy to get demotivated and say, I don't really have that background and somebody to look up to. So I tell them, see, you can't, it's not polarized. No, you can't just say it's binary and it's very tough or it's very easy, but you really have to know, is it for you?
Yeah.
So, I always knew I can't do a 9 to 5. Now it's hard to explain why, but I sort of knew I never can do a 9 to 5. Even when I was in school, I knew I cannot do a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I have also realized over the years, Maniraj, that what I do, people look at me and say, oh my God, don't you dislike what you do, staying up for 20 hours and working on an Excel file. So it's all in the eye of the beholder. Life is not easy or tough, if you want to succeed, you of course have to work hard. I think that goes without saying. But when it comes to entrepreneurs, what is the advice you would give to these students, right? For example, what is the right information that they should seek? Should they test the waters before making that jump, or should they just do it and, run with it? What would your advice be on that?
So, I would chime with what you said, right? I have a very similar feeling. Like I can't do a 9 to 5. I can't be, bound to a time, even though I might sit through that time, even when I'm doing my own thing. But I can't be bound to it. And I actually did try doing a job for a few months, and I realized that's certainly not for me. So for me, it was very, very clear that this is the only way to go, and there is no other choice. So I think when that happens, it just naturally falls into place. And doing a job is a fantastic thing, right? You can it just it boils down to, you have certain personal goals. Can you achieve your personal goals by doing a job, or do you have to become an entrepreneur to achieve your personal goals? And it depends on person to person. Some people are very happy with, let's say, a 9 to 5 schedule, and then they don't want to worry about, they don't want to work 24 hours. And a job is a little more, towards that side, although there is still a lot of stress. But I would say that the kind of stress in entrepreneurship will definitely be higher, but then the returns will also be higher. So figure out what you are made for. And if you think that this is the way to go for you to achieve your personal goals, then so be it. Otherwise, if you can be a corporate leader and still get what you want, there's nothing wrong about it. Yeah, the media does hype it a little bit, become an entrepreneur, raise funds. That's really, really hyped these days. That's, business is a lot more than that. But yeah, just cut out the hype and just be what you really, really wish to be.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you today.